Okay, I think it's 5 o'clock, at least somewhere. And 3 December, as you can see on my board. This is LDR 340. What are we? Week 7, huh? Excuse me, I had to get a drink there. So congratulations on getting this far. It's your last week. Last student article on Wednesday, and instructor article on Saturday. And then next week you have your paper due. Make sure you get that in on time. If you want to, go ahead and get it in now. One of you already has, which I'm really excited about. I'll be grading that tomorrow. And then you also have a final exam that will open on Wednesday. If there's somebody, and one of you already has, needs an additional time or a different framework because of exigencies or the like, let me know. So this person already has, and we'll make arrangements for him or her. Excuse me. Okay, so no new announcements. As you can see on my board here, we've got the email that's come out. It came out last week. And I'm sorry, I'm looking down right now. I'm not looking at the camera so that I can look at what's going on here. The idea being is that you're going to be converted over. Email accounts will go from mock.edu, back when we were the Mount Olive College days, to mock or umo.edu. Okay, so like I said, I'm just working on something here, so sorry about that. Okay. I think we're all set. Not sure why I'm not hearing you on the speaker, though. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that. Anyway, so this this conversion that's going to take place is going to be and I'm not getting any sound. I wonder if anybody's hearing. Everything tested out okay. So that tells me I got something that's not quite right. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, so everything looks good, so we'll just go with it. All right. Okay. So I'm seeing inputs, so I'm assuming we're good. All right, sorry about that. So anyway, your email is going to convert over. At that point, or during that conversion process from Thursday, December 19th to Sunday, December 22nd, you're not going to have access to Portal Guard, MyUmo, Moodle, Adobe, Zoom, Zendesk, email accounts, or Starfish. The reason that matters to you is because typically it's going to take me about 3 days to grade the papers. 21 of you, that's a lot of reading. And I read your papers 3 times. So what will happen here is I will send you the feedback. You're going to see your grade for the paper entered by Wednesday at the latest. That then is going to allow you to see how your grade calculates out. I give you usually 24 hours to take a look at that. I typically don't hear from any students, which is fine. If there's no issues, then there's no need to let me know anything, okay? But that kind of gets an opportunity to say, hey, something happened here. That means I'm going to post your final grade, in other words, record them and send them to the University of Mount Olive, to the registrar, on Thursday by about noon. So you'll have a small window there before 2200, 10 o'clock that night to take a look, okay? If you want to see your semester grades after or during that period, as the notice tells you, that selfserve.umo.edu will still be available. And during this process, evidently, username and password will not change. Okay. And you're supposed to get some more emails. All right. As you know, but just for the sake, again, there is a number of aspects here. Excuse me for scratching my ear. Here are the Zoom sessions. Again, clicking on that takes you to that particular week. Clicking on that again, and you will see where they are. Okay? And those are linked into YouTube. Let's see. Last week's, there's been 3 views. 252. So not all of you are looking at it. Some of you are, or somebody is, which is good. That's fine. There is certainly no requirement to, but you might want to, because there might be some information there of use, and I'm going to pass out some again tonight. LDR 300, here are the leadership class slides. Framework for that textbook, plus the slides from previous class. That class is a little dated, so these may not be perfectly up to date. However, they are good enough to give you at least some ideas and to go through. Now, the reason I show you this again, as we're getting into last week, is some of you just aren't getting quite deep into your analysis. And I'm not sure why, okay? But dig in there and pull something out, and you'll start kicking, hitting it out of the stands. The other thing is that as I scroll down to the paper, you'll note that there's going to be some explanations of various elements. And I've told you you're going to do at least 4. You're going to talk organizational culture, organizational structures, organizational, or the protagonist, I should say, leadership style. Remember the protagonist, he or him or her. Generally, if it's not apparent in whatever article, that you at least identify the chief executive officer. Okay, this is a leadership class. We're going after the leader. All right, and as you know, CEO is not unlike a commanding officer. Everything he's responsible, or she is responsible for everything that organization does or fails to do. And 4th, ethical climate. So, culture, structures, leadership styles, and ethical climate. Well, if you're unfamiliar with that and don't remember LDR 300, then go back up here to the leadership class size. In there, you'll see which chapter covered structures, what chapter covered styles, what chapter covered culture. Okay, and then go into the slides for that particular chapter. Okay, and you'll at least get some information. Otherwise, everybody's doing good. I got to tell you, last week, the instructor article was a lot. You did a phenomenal job. All right, and in fact, let me go ahead and cover that right now. Okay, so we should see that's really kind of odd. It was upside down. All right, so as we go through this, I'll tell you what, so, it's funny coming into a computer that isn't yours and all the things that pop up. All right, so last week, the instructor article was on the Lyft CFO. I just see I have a typo on mine. I somehow got CFEO. Not sure what that is. Chief Financial Equal Officer. Anyway, Chief Financial Officer Brian Roberts. Okay. Hey, by the way, so on all your papers, make sure that you don't just spell check with Microsoft, and that's fine to do, but do a little bit more. Microsoft spell check is going to find grammar and spelling errors. Okay, it won't identify when you've used the wrong word. So in one of your case last week, I told you, I suggest you proofread as well to catch that. So last week, and I'm going to turn around to my board here. Last week, instead of Brian, right, one of you kept spelling it Ray. Okay. Now, Microsoft is going to look at that and go, you spelled it right. So it's not going to catch it as an error for you. All right, but it's obviously an error. So proofread your paper as well, okay? Thanks. All right, so the Lyft CFO has an open door policy and regularly holds chats, essentially very free form, large group conversations, quote unquote. And that's to facilitate communication and give people greater clarity on company strategy. So we can make an evaluation on this, can't we? So your position statement in an evaluation would be something along the lines of, Mr. Roberts is not an effective leader, right? And so you got to take a position. So you're going to argue it is or is not, right? Depending on how you see it. Okay, but that's just part of the position statement, right? Okay, that's your conclusion. Now you got to find the evidence to support it. And so in an evaluation, you're picking 3 to 5 criteria that is critical to the case at hand. Okay, there could be more that you could use. Heck, you could use every leadership principle, model, theory that you know, okay? But you want to get neck it down to what the most critical are to the case at hand. All right. And so in this particular case, is Mr. Roberts effective in communication and implementation of strategy? Yeah, probably, if he's able to do these things. Okay, so one can make the case that he is an effective leader based on the use of this open door policy. And, in the feedback I gave you, we discussed some of that. Okay, there is magic in open discussions. Allowing the ability to communicate and see better company strategy is tremendous. Frequent office hours doled out in 10-minute increments, so that any more than 150 people on finance team get one-on-one with the chief financial officer. Wow, okay. So here's a guy who's willing to meet with over 150 people. Okay, now if that's sounds good, then one would say, let's do a calculation here real fast. So, excuse me, 150 people times 10 minutes is 1,500, and there are, let's say there's 20 hours in a day, and there's 60 minutes per hour. He's not going to get there, is he? And so essentially what you're finding is there's some traps here, okay, or potential traps. I'm not saying there are, okay. So that's why in the second paragraph down I gave you, some of us might find him ineffective as a leader because of this open door policy, okay, and this one-to-one communication. All right, and some of that is that if you are operating at multiple levels in the organizational chart, you're the top guy or gal, then you need to kind of watch what you're doing in this case, because there is a fine line in allowing open door policy and also adhering to the use of the chain of command. So the example I gave you, what if you're a position coach, a mid-level leader, a junior officer in the military? How would you like it if a subordinate, instead of coming to you, is going straight into, in this particular case, as a position coach, that player is going straight to the head coach? Or as a mid-level leader, that person's going to the CFO or the CEO. As an officer, you're a lieutenant, and here you got your sergeant, your lance corporal, going straight to the battalion commander. That doesn't fly very well for some of us. And so an aspect of the open door policy is the message that it sends, okay, and or potentially can. And remember, the DAF text told us leadership is an influence process, and that the Fiedler model, when we're looking at contingency theory, what we're trying to determine is the entire situation and what our leadership principles, styles, and efforts are, and how they affect that organization, okay? Some organizations that don't have rigid hierarchy might do very well in that. Others won't, and you can't discount personal nuances and quirks. Certainly, in your particular case as a student, if I found out that you went straight to the dean on an issue without, on a subject about me, without giving me a chance to at least address it with you or work with you, yeah, I'm not going to be very happy because I'm here to do my job. So that's all I'm trying to get you to consider. And so as you go through these evaluations, you could still say he's an effective leader by doing the open door policy, and then qualify that and say he needs to take into account impact on chain of command, and then make the determination if this is what needs to happen in the here and now, and that is more effective for that organization, more effective for him as a leader, more effective for the subordinates, then by all means go with it. There's never a wrong answer in this regard, because you're at least taking into account the situation and making the determination as best you can. Okay? Anyway, so that's all I was trying to get you to think of. Now, the other piece to this is I threw you in this chart of pigs and chickens. Okay, and this is an analogy, a metaphor, if you will. We're not really talking about pigs and chickens. We're not calling people names. But what this is a model to define the type of roles that an attendee can play during a Scrum meeting. So as you go through your leadership and as you go through other programs, some of you may be interested in pursuing a certificate in project management, PMP exam. So in project management, the term for a meeting of a special type is called a Scrum. It comes from rugby, I guess, or from, I don't know, the French word. Anyway, it means to move it forward. So a Scrum is just kind of a huddle. And it's designed to be short term, 15 minutes or so. And it's designed to be a stand-up, okay, so that we're not reclining in comfortable leather seats and then making it a 4 or 5 hour meeting. And the idea here is that in the Scrum, certain people are going to talk and others will not, to shorten the time frame. So that's why we've come up with pigs and chickens. The inspiration of pigs and chickens comes from a joke. Pig and chicken walking down the road, they pass by a breakfast place, and the chicken looks at the pig and says, "Hey, why don't we open up a restaurant?" The pig looks back at the chicken, says, "Hey, I think that's a great idea. What do you think we ought to serve?" And the chicken thinks about it, says, "I think we ought to serve ham and eggs. What do you think?" And the pig says, "I don't think so." And the chicken says, "Why not?" The pig says, "Well, I'm going to be committed, but you're only going to be involved." Okay. Okay. Ham and eggs, pigs and chickens. All right. So what the idea is in the pigs and chickens aspect of a Scrum is that only those who are committed at that particular point in that project, those with the most critical aspect of the task at hand, the one directly accountable for completion of that task, is going to talk, okay? Essentially, the person whose bacon is on the line, okay, as use another metaphor. All right, if the task doesn't get completed, hey, this is going to be, bad news for all of us. The pigs talk in the Scrum. The chickens remain silent. Now, that doesn't mean they can avoid the meeting. They got to be there because they're involved. But everybody's focused on who's the most critical at that point. Okay, and do the roles change? Absolutely. Depending on the project at hand. Who was a pig in one meeting may be the chicken in the next, and vice versa, okay? Typically, the roles are self-assigned, okay? In other words, you're training your staff to make a determination as to who needs to talk and why, okay? We've all been in long meetings where people talk and drone on and on because they feel a need to say something, anything, or they're showing off, or any number of reasons. Okay, and it's always difficult. I've had to do it a few times where I tell the person, look, if this isn't relating to a critical task that demands everybody's attention, don't even bring it up in the staff meeting unless asked. Okay, if this is routine, depending on the nature, fill the boss in later or send him an email. Okay, don't feel a need to fill up our time because we don't need it filled up. Okay, we got other things to do. The second piece to that is, if it is critical, then let the people talk that are the most responsible and how you can best support them. Okay, this is not the time to tell somebody else whose bacon's on the line that you have a better idea in supporting them because of what works best for you. Okay, you're there to support. All right. So anyway, just a way of taking a look at it, something you want to make think of. It's all about meeting and being more efficient. Okay. All right. So then my feedback to you, went back into a 1970s article from Harvard Business Review titled "Who's Got the Monkey?" By Onken and Wass. This came out in 1974. It's an iconic article. A lot of people are familiar with it. I think as a leader, you most certainly should be. And that's why I included it in the feedback. Now, in my other classes, and if we were doing this a seated class, you would have had it as a quick read assignment. Okay, I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Hopefully you can see it. But Harvard Business Review. Okay. Yeah, 1974. That was ages ago. But it's still a very current issue. Okay, and the idea is that you have so much time in an organization that you have to devote to competing demands. You have system-imposed time, which is you are required to spend an amount of your day feeding the system and working the system. These are your normal tasks that keep everything running. Okay, and then you have boss-imposed time, where the boss comes in and gives you direct task, or there's something you got to report to, any number of things. Okay, so already out of your busy day, you've lost an amazing amount of time to dealing with the organization as a whole, the system, and the boss. That leaves your own self-imposed tasks. Well, within that framework, you've also got to include the time you're spending with your subordinates. All right, so the article uses a metaphor, okay? And that metaphor is the monkey. In this case, the monkey is a task, an issue, a problem that must be dealt with in some regard. And the metaphor is who's got the monkey on the back. In other words, monkey on the back is a problem you have. So imagine you've got a subordinate with a monkey on their back, and they come in and they say they need help with it. And you say, well, let me take a look at it. Well, that monkey just leapt from your subordinate's back onto yours. And it's now your task, and you're now working for your subordinate because you just took their task on. All right? You told them to essentially wait while you're looking into the matter. All right? And so what this article is trying to do is try to get you to understand impacts of subordinate imposed time and then give you a framework in which to work. All right. So as you scroll down, you would see, I'm giving you a little bit of a lesson in there, metaphor, figure of speech, that makes an implicit, implied, or hidden comparison between two things that are unrelated, that share common characteristics. All right, so it's not easy to carry a monkey around on your back. It's something that's always there, and it's always occupying your mind. All right, well, that's similar but unrelated to a problem, okay? And, you know, it's like somebody tell you, you know, the issue of the boiled frog. Okay, we're not sitting around putting frogs and pans on stoves, but the metaphor is that you turn the heat up, and over the long term, the frog doesn't realize it's being boiled. Now, whether that's true or not, the metaphor is that slow change tends not to alert anybody, and there's danger behind it. Okay, and then I give you aphorisms, tricolones or trincolones, malaphors. Anyway, take a look at that at your leisure. Some good stuff. But anyway, getting back to the monkey article, then we understand what's called the anatomy of managerial initiative. All right, so in the article, it tells you there are levels of initiative. And within that, it gives you an idea of how to deal with this. And so you're provided a framework that I really recommend you read this article about because it adds to your toolbox as a leader. You are telling your subordinate a level of initiative, okay? Level one is don't do anything till I tell you. Okay, well, we want to get rid of that. Okay, that's not allowing your subordinate to learn, and that's you're not, you know, that's just too much. Okay, and it goes all the way up to perform the task and let's not worry about you telling me about it. Okay, I trust and confidence that you're going to get it done. I give you a certain amount of initiative, right, on certain things. For example, I don't need you reporting back that you've done your online coach. Okay, I gave you the framework. I gave you the time it needs to be done by, recommended. The rest is up to you, right? Some things are going to be done a certain week, okay, because that's critical to how the course is set up. You will post an article at a certain time so that people can review it and give you feedback. Okay. So what this does then is have you think through what level of initiative you want your subordinate working on that task. Wouldn't that be nice if you had a boss that did that? I'm sure you do. But sometimes it's nice to have a boss tell you, look, I want you to do this and then report back to me at these times. Or, hey, I want you to wait and I'll let you know before you can proceed. Or, hey, just take care of it. That's your job. The reason for that is it eliminates a lot of guesswork. And now we understand what the boss is expecting, and we have an area that we can grow and develop it. Okay. Anyway, the other piece to this is effective delegation. Okay. And Alkin advocates in the article, and it's basically, developing a trusting relationship. Okay. Alkin's message was ahead of his time. He was telling bosses, give the monkey back. In other words, he was saying that too many bosses in those days were authoritarian. Delegate, develop a partnership. Let's get past transactional leadership and get into transformational leadership. Let's use the aphorism, a rising tide lifts all boats. We don't care about boats. We don't care about the lunar impacts on the earth. What we're trying to get at is that if we allow everybody to grow, the whole organization will grow. Okay? And that's what it's getting back to. So here's a slide that kind of runs it out, the boss system, self-imposed time, the levels of initiative that you want to give to your people. And then in the article, read that piece of the 5 care and feeding emojis. If you all want a copy of the article, email me, and I'll make sure you get it. Otherwise, the title and authors, and it's fairly easy to find. Okay, we talk about interactive leadership style, and we get into making sure that we understand roles and purpose. Okay, again, primary purpose of management to provide order and consistency. It's a bottom line focus. Purpose of leadership is to provide change and movement, a top line focus. Okay, does that mean that leaders are managers? Most certainly. Does that mean managers should be leaders? Possibly. Certainly should in many aspects, because many of the tasks are the same. You're planning, you're organizing, you're directing. Okay, that said, there's some aspects to leadership that are in the leader's realm, predominantly in vision and those aspects that require somebody to establish a direction. Okay, and this should also include culture, code of ethics, and the like. Okay, last week I shared with you the case of Mr. Brewer from Earthlink and more of late Mindspring. Okay, he developed out his code, if you will, before he even knew what business he was going to be in. But he knew this is how he wanted his organization to run. So, think about those times now where you are sorry about that. You've got this time now where you're in school, you're in class. This is your time. This is your prep time. If you will allow a military terminology. So think through some of these things. Think through some elements that as a person, you want that organization, whatever it is that you're going to lead, to run. This can include, your own business. This includes at church. Heck, this includes your family. And I'm not saying that you're a dictatorial boss to your leader, to your family, but in some elements you are. You're the leader. And so time to develop some of that out. Okay. So it's already 5:35, 17:35 for those of us in the military. Your last article is due Wednesday, right? And let's take a look. Hey, look at that. 1, 2, 4 of you have already got yours up. So good job there. Some of you are already making your comments. Ms. Swanson, great job. Thank you. Keep at it. And then your instructor case is how Fiat Chrysler's proposed merger with Renault crashed. Okay, so this one's going to be a little tough to get through. Okay, you need to pick your protagonist very carefully. All right. Understand that I already give this away. I've given you the challenges. Okay, right there in topics. Okay, negotiation and mergers and acquisitions. So it's already kind of telling you what the issue is, or at least two. Okay, what do you remember from the DAF text on negotiation? Okay, do you remember conflict resolution? Do you recall distributive bargaining versus integrative negotiation? Okay, win-lose versus win-win. Remember, conflict is inevitable. Combat is a choice. So depending on how we go in to handle our conflict, dictates a different type of strategy for negotiation. You're going to get this more in your latter LDR coursework where you get into conflict resolution. But DAFT already gave you the foundation of it on, again, distributive bargaining and integrative negotiation. Okay. M&A, mergers and acquisitions, have definite impacts. Okay, remember you're bringing two organizations together, and now you're having to figure yourselves out organizationally, culturally, okay, how you do business. In a lot of ways, M&As are rife with issues. There are some that you will acquire an organization because they like it, and then they don't forget how they do business. Well, okay, if you acquire them, they're doing well, why are you having them change their business model? But there's any host of these, and we've seen where mergers and acquisitions go south in a hurry, Sprint, Nextel. And this is an interesting one where the deal was doomed, and you may see a problem in there, okay? Certainly communication, diversity is probably in there, and it's, again, how we look at these articles is going to depend on who we are, okay? If leadership was the same, you wouldn't have to take this course, then we just hand you a laminated sheet and off you go. So as I read this article, I'm going to find different things than perhaps you will, and that's fine. Again, you go through it, do your analysis, and give me what you think, okay? I understand, you know, we're students, we're getting through this. But you've had LDR 300, you've had years of experience based on who you are and what you've done over the past number of years, depending. And so let's bring it out, okay? All right. The instructor article, again, due Saturday night. Then the midterm will open at noon on Wednesday, the 11th, unless you've already talked to me on a different time frame. It's 10% of your grade. The final, I've finished writing it. It does cover chapters 8 through 11 of your DAFT text, right? Okay, 8 through 11. The it does have 4 questions from the case study coach. It has a question or 2 from our discussions. So if you haven't been reading the feedback I've been providing you, that'll be a challenge, okay? If you need some help, certainly let me know. All right. Have your midterm done no later than 1500 on Saturday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Saturday, 14 December. The exam takes an hour. I've given you an hour. So when I say complete the exam no later than 1500 or 3 o'clock on Saturday, just understand that that's when the exam closes. Okay, and if you're taking it, it's going to close on you. All right, so give yourself time. Don't wait until 10 minutes before the exam closes to try to start taking it. Okay, you're not going to have enough time. Give yourself at least an hour. Okay. All right, and then your case study paper is on the screen here, and that's due on Saturday. I'm sorry. I apologize. That's when I wanted to know what organization you're writing on. Down here, no later than Sunday, okay, 23:59, 11:59 p.m., Sunday, okay? Now, I'm hoping most of you have gotten into the Saturday routines. And you certainly, like I said, can turn in early. Already have one turned in, so I'll accept them whenever they get in. But the bottom line on it is make sure they get in, because we don't have a lot of time for me to grade them and turn this around. Finally, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of your Moodle page, should be on the upper right-hand corner, you'll see smart evals, okay? So as I look at this Moodle page, yep, sure enough, in the upper right-hand corner, here's a hot link for course evaluation, okay? I ask you to certainly take it and do it. These are read by the dean, I assure you. I don't see them until the dean shares whatever he wants to share or she wants to share with me. So I would ask that you take it and be frank in your comments. If it's related to the course, the text, the 8-week design, the testing, as in the raw article, the framework of that, those are, fair game, okay? If it's about me personally, again, you certainly can, but just as I know you would appreciate me letting you know if I had an issue with you early on in the course so that you could correct it or at least address it, I kind of would appreciate the same courtesy. If it's, hey, Jamison needs to improve his appearance by shaving his facial hair, yeah, I wish you told me that sooner so we didn't have to go through 8 weeks of frustration for you, okay? And I'm being a little flippant here, but I'm being honest with you. You always appreciate an evaluation that's timely and isn't a surprise at the end. Same thing with your grades. You turn your grades around, you get feedback, I hope, so that once we reach the final grade mark, you understand what happened and why, okay? All right, enough said on that. So we're going over a little bit, but I want to show you a quick video. And I think you'll find this of interest. So I think that is probably one of the most effective commercials I think I've ever seen. I think they did a great job with that. All right. So I hope everybody does well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week. Okay. Take good care, and again, let me know if you need anything.